And now, ladies and gentlemen, all of you nerdy folk out there, let's talk about That Just Happened. This is the show where we talk about the things that we're interacting with on a day-to-day basis from nerdy and or pop culture, like movies that came out that we finally got around to watching, or TV shows, or comic books, or music, or all of the things that we do that, we want to talk about. We want to interact with folk. What did you think about this or that or the other thing? That's what you're watching, and that is That Just Happened. First up, I watched episode 8 of The Last of Us, and alright, so we have to have a second, real quick, to talk about The Last of Us. I like The Last of Us, so I don't want anything that's about to come out of my mouth to be misconstrued as, oh, you're just hating. No, it's a great show. I think it's fantastically done. There is a couple of issues here. First up, actually, no, there's just one primary issue. I shouldn't say couple. The one primary issue that I have with The Last of Us is it feels like you can watch it piecemeal. That's not even the best way to put it. It feels like vignettes. It feels like every couple of episodes we get a subplot. Yes, I understand that there is a grand overarching plot that is kind of linking everything together, but it doesn't feel like we're getting that close to it. I honestly am going to be very surprised if we get to the end of the story from the first game, by the end of the next episode, because there's a lot of ground to cover. So that's the first bit. But all the vignette thing. So episodes 1 and 2, we establish Ellie and Joel and where the series is going to go. And there's a subplot that happens there that comes to a conclusion roughly at the end of episode 2. Then we get episode 3. We've talked about episode 3 ad nauseum at this point. Basically could have worked episode 3 in as a subplot throughout the entire rest of the show. I still stand by that statement. And then we get episode 4 and 5, which is another subplot that I was honestly very, very surprised that we got a conclusion for, because that seemed like a great and major antagonist to drive us to the end of the season. Again, I know a lot more at this point than I did when we talked about it at that point, what the story is from the game. I still have not played the game. I don't have a PlayStation. Unable to play a game without a PlayStation. So that being said, I know now a lot more about how this show ends, or how the game story ends at least. And it seems like we're doing the things that happen in the game, but the difference in storytelling here is, in the game, you're putting in 15, 20, I think the actual, if you do the main story and all that stuff, it's something close to 20, 22 hours of gameplay. So in order to motivate a story for that long, it makes sense to have a couple of subplots that rise and fall and rise and fall. But that's not how you do storytelling in an episodic medium. That's not how you do storytelling in an episodic medium. Generally speaking, there are exceptions to this, always exceptions when dealing with stuff like this, but generally speaking, you have maybe 2 or 3 subplots that deal specifically with different characters that drive all the way through, that feed into the main plot, but they don't have a resolution necessarily until the end or close to the end of the season. That's what drives the individual season, and then the seasons as pieces drive the overall narrative for the bigger story that you're telling with the entire series. That's really not what's going on here. Again, I think it's great. It's powerful even. I would put this close to, but not on the same level as Game of Thrones, as if you consider Game of Thrones just to be seasons 1 through 6, then yeah, it's that kind of power. But Game of Thrones had storytelling in spades. George R.R. Martin is an expert storyteller. The dude's doing Last of Us, still working on that expert status. I think that's really all I wanted to say. It just feels like vignettes. It feels like we're getting too much resolution. I don't see the motivation to continue if you keep resolving these issues. There's a better way to do this, and I'm not a director, so I don't know, I can't put into the most eloquent words the way to get there, because I'm still in studies as far as film and stuff go. So yeah, just a better way to get there. Let's move on, or I'm just going to keep talking in circles. Next up, we're talking about Night Sky, series over on Amazon Prime. I just finished Night Sky. I waited forever to watch the last 2.5 episodes technically. J.K. Simmons, Sissy Spacek, it was the suggestion in the last episode for TV streaming. It's a great series. You only get one season of it, and it makes me super freaking sad because, like, it was so well done, but they only have so much money to dump into these things. Apparently J.K. Simmons is pretty expensive. Sissy Spacek obviously is pretty expensive. And they just couldn't justify the money to do a second season for this. But they set up a second season that is so incredibly intriguing. So kind of sort of spoilery, I guess, just to be aware. But yeah, the other planet, which may or may not actually be another planet, is breathable? Like, what? And there's a settlement there. There's people, beings of some sort. We don't get to see them. We get to see where they live, though. And oh, I wish. Oh, what alternate universe do I have to live in order to see a second season for Night Sky? Because it was so fun. It was so much fun. If you've watched it, let's talk about it in the comments. Next is the Chris Rock special. All right. I probably should have done a short for this one too, but whatever. So Chris Rock's Selective Outrage special released this weekend on Netflix. It was getting all kinds of noise and hype and stuff around it because of, I mean, obviously it's called Selective Outrage, and that is kind of what woke folk are guilty of in a lot of ways. So yeah, it would definitely pushed some buttons, but it's Chris Rock. That's kind of what Chris Rock does, right? Is he pushes buttons. That's how he is a successful comedian, because he knows how to push them and make them funny. So this is my general take on the Chris Rock the Selective Outrage. It was good. It was pretty funny. I mean, it definitely was not the best Chris Rock stand-up ever. I appreciate him dealing with woke folk the way he does in the special. Obviously, there's going to be some personal politic issues between he and I, because we don't necessarily have the same politics, which is fine. I still think he's one of the funniest damn people on the face of the planet, so whatever. And then the stuff at the end about Will and Jada, like, that was hilarious. Legitimately, like, regardless of the slap, well, I don't know, the slap kind of factored into it pretty hardcore, but there have been people taking issue with the fact that he's still telling jokes about Jada. Like, that's the point. He's a comedian. That's what he does. He actually had some sort of, and maybe not great in-depth friendship with them, but like a casual friendship with them before the Oscars. So the outrage, the selective outrage, if you will, because nobody was really taking jabs at Jada when he made those jokes. He wasn't talking about her self-induced alopecia, which is unfortunate. I know alopecia can be very detrimental to many people, specifically women, but her alopecia was brought on by wearing too many and or too tight of weaves. So is it like your hair's gonna come back? You just gotta stop wearing stupid weaves. Anyway, sorry, derailing, but yeah, he had a relationship. He made a joke about the Oscars, and he made a joke about her shaving her head as a fashion statement. Probably had no idea she had alopecia, was just you know, you can rib your friends. That's why they're your friends, because they get it. Or you can rib people with a good sense of humor because they have a good sense of humor. I will always and forever go back to the Key and Peele article that they wrote for Time magazine, where they said they specifically target everyone, because the second they don't make a joke that it makes sense in whatever context they're telling the story, or whatever context the skit or sketch is in, the second they don't make a joke about a specific group of people is the second that they say that group of people cannot take it. That group of people should be dealt with kitty gloves. That group of people is weaker, so we can't target them with our humor. And they don't believe that any group of people is weaker. They believe that everyone should be able to look at themselves and laugh. And that's what Chris Rock was doing. That is the philosophy of a good comedian. Is you can make somebody look at themselves and see the flaws in themselves and laugh at the flaws in themselves. It's also a sign of a good audience member when you can go on that ride that's being provided to you from said good comedian. So, I don't know, I guess I'm kind of rambling a little bit now, so let's move right along, shall we? And then the other thing, I feel like there was a little bit more, but all that made it into the notes for this episode is a movie I was, looking, it was late, wanted to put on something that maybe I was going to fall asleep to, but also a big sci-fi fan, so I watched Zone 414, starring Guy Pearce. Guy Pearce, I'll just say this right off the bat, Guy Pearce is always a win. I don't think I've ever seen him give a bad performance. This movie is basically hinging on that fact. Not a very good movie. Not terrible, like it's definitely watchable. I'm not going to recommend it in the suggested section for movies anytime soon, but it's definitely watchable. It's a very mild take on the cyberpunk subgenre. Beyond that, I don't know. If you're looking for something for background noise, which is effectively what this was, because I put that on while I was finishing the sections and stuff to go up on the Clips channel last week, it's a decent watch. It's definitely not great. Guy Pearce is great. Guy Pearce is gonna be the dude in any movie he's in. I wish he did more movies. I wish he did more high-profile movies, because this was not. Came out in 2021, so it's a little dated, but still, it's on Netflix. It's basically free, so you might as well throw it on while you need some noise. That is what we've got this week. As far as moving forward, what the things that I intend to do next week that we're going to talk about here on That Just Happened is I fully intend on watching the final 6 episodes of The Nevers now that they are up on Tubi, so be on the lookout for that. If you want to join me and have that conversation in the next episode, then by all means please do. As far as, I also intend, if it becomes available, because I still have not seen Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey, I really, really want to, so I'm gonna try and get my eyeballs on that as well. As far as other things go, Mandalorian is the big one on my radar right now, and that is probably gonna get watched tonight, actually. So yeah, that's what we got going forward. Thank you very much for sticking around, nerds. Join the conversation. Let's talk about what just happened for you, because that just happened for me. Thank you very much. We'll see you in the next one, nerds. Before we go, always remember that if it's generally nerdy, it's probably here.
I can't believe that just fucking happened.
Is it dead?
Oh my god.